Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted Podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Mattson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. We just want to take a moment to tell you about Living Wholehearted. We are a wonderful team of professional counselors and executive coaches who come alongside leaders, helping you live with integrity in every area of your life.
Yeah, so our newest member, executive coach, leadership consultant, Joe. Joe has got over 4 decades of senior leadership experience. He's a CEO of CEOs in companies like Verizon, American Airlines, Accenture, and others. Joe is, there's not been a fire or a situation that he hasn't experienced in his decades of senior leadership. And so we love having Joe. Joe brings a quality that I can't bring. I've got a few gray hairs here, but he has a seasoned leadership experience and decades of it. So that's Joe.
Connie has been a writer. She works with women in all sacred and secular spaces. She's got 4 kids. She knows what it's like to be running a career as well as running a home. And she also has launched churches. She understands ministry and work life. She's an incredible executive coach. Rhonda has 30 plus years working as a pastor herself, and she is spending her retirement working on helping pastors and ministry leaders not only develop leaders in their own systems, but to help with sabbaticals and learn rhythms of rest. So you can find more about our coaches, Rhonda at Living Wholehearted, Connie at Living Wholehearted, Joe at Living Wholehearted, and obviously Jeff and Terra at Living Wholehearted. You can go to livingwholehearted.com to read their full bios. But know that if you are a leader and you're looking for something that's more holistic, not a coach who's going to tell you to do more, but to help you learn and grow from the inside out, both from spiritual formation, trauma-informed mental health, and really evidence-based leadership principles that we know work on the ground floor, we are the organization for you. So Jeff and I are here today. It's just you and I, and we get to have an honest conversation.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la. Okay, so we're in a series on wanting to talk about toxic faith communities. Jeff and I do a lot of training and equipping on spiritual abuse and helping people heal from church wounds. It's just a common conversation with the leaders that we're working with, both in marriages, families, workplaces, churches, right? It's all over the place.
Yeah. So
it's a common conversation. We're also training and equipping counselors and pastors and CEOs and just trying to create cultures that are healthier.
This is just part of what we do at Living Wholehearted, but it's a significant part because we do have a love for the church and there are spiritual communities. We work with a lot of people that don't share our faith, organizationally speaking, which is awesome too. But this aspect right here is kind of a special hot point for us to try to help people who've been injured by overly religious and spiritually abusive communities.
Yeah. In our offices, we've had so many that have had to be silent or have been kept silent because of the abuses. We've worked with clients from systems like Mars Hill. Many of you know about the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast. We're up in the Northwest, so we've seen a lot of clients that have gone through systems similar to that and have actually participated in that church system. And it's just common. It's more common, and it breaks our heart. So today, the specific topic we want to talk about is how in healthy systems, your needs matter. And in unhealthy systems, needs don't matter. I mean, at the core of abuse,
certain people's needs don't matter in unhealthy systems.
Okay.
Certain people's in those systems, their needs are the only thing that matters.
You're meaning like the narcissistic or the one that we all try to please, the leader, right? Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And just the other day, not too long ago, we were doing an interview with Allie Worthington. You can go listen to that episode. I think it's 181. But I stopped you in the middle. You were talking about how women, I think Allie said, women can start by asking for their needs. And you were like, yeah, talking about how easy that is for relationships when we speak up. And then I interrupted and said, hey, it's really hard for us women to ask for needs. And that video clip went really far and provided quite a conversation, actually, between men and women.
That's
men
good.
who were like, yes, speak up, please. And women who were like, it's really hard for me to be courageous to ask for what I need. I also imagine there's men that have a hard time asking for what they need as well.
Yeah.
So we don't want to dismiss that. And there are women who grew up in healthier systems who were taught that their needs matter and can speak up. So we're not overgeneralizing, but we really want to talk about healthy versus unhealthy, especially when it comes to followers of Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, communication is just one of those classic things that breaks down between men and women and the genders in marriage, in friendship, in colleague relationships, if you will, work relationships. It just is always there. We're never going to be hurting for opportunities to work and come alongside others to help in that way. We're also trying to practice the things that we know that really work in our own relationships across the board, at home, at work, community, and needs matter. They matter. And learning to see people, hearing people and what they need, valuing them. I was just talking with one of our colleagues the other day. He's been a seasoned business leader for decades. And he was just sharing about his journey of trying to grow and to be a better listener. And in the corporate world, in so many cases, he was so used to being the one that was teaching and doing all the talking. And it's a kind of a whole, it's not relatively a new frontier. He's been at this for a little while now, discovering the joy of seeing and drawing out. And actually, he was saying the struggle of not thinking about what I'm going to say as somebody's speaking. And I've asked him a good question, but actually really engaging and listening to them and discerning what their real need is. Not just to sell a product, not just to sell a service, not to look the right part or what have you, but actually to see people and engage with them and meet them with where they are and what their needs are. It's just been a profound thing for him more recently in his long journey of leadership.
I love it. Okay, let's define needs, because the common question I get specifically, I'm thinking about this, president of a company, we're in marriage, coaching, we're working through baseline work. They've been married 30 plus years, a lot of unhealthy habits, both grew up in Christian culture, love Jesus, passionate about Jesus. But his question simply was like, do my needs really matter as a follower of Jesus? Like, am I supposed to have needs? I don't even know what those needs are, but I'm still wondering if I'm supposed to have needs. There's this undercurrent kind of myth, I'm going to say, that when you follow Jesus, all of a sudden, all your needs are met by Jesus. Only.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you have any needs, you must not be trusting him or going to him or praying to him or reading your Bible enough.
Faithful enough.
Yeah. And oftentimes church leaders, in the goodness of their heart, that's where they go right away is, how's your quiet time? And, how you doing with Jesus, which actually is a true question. It should be asked, right? Because if we're not spending time with the Lord and leaning in there, then some of our needs aren't going to be able to be met as human beings.
Yeah, he said, remain in me and I in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So there's that. And
it's a good starting place,
and that
right?
is true. But it's also, there's also scriptures that talk about dying to self. And that gets really wonky, if you will, is your word. When we start thinking, that means all my needs and the things I want that are connected to actual need, I need to die to it and place everybody else's before me. That's where things start getting unhealthy. And in unhealthy systems, perpetuating that gets real wonky.
Well, and I want to go back to my core thing that I was trying to say earlier, is that at the core of abusive, unhealthy systems, that person that is all about their needs dismisses everybody else's needs.
That's right.
What you think, what you feel, what you want, what you do doesn't matter. It's really about me, the leader or the narcissist or the unhealthy victim in a system. And so there's this there's this training ground that happens in families that we grow up in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're drawn to certain church systems based on the family of origin.
Yeah.
So if you come to the Lord later in life, or you grew up in a really chaotic home, you are hungry for a place where you're told what to do, because chaotic homes,
And things are simple, and they're not complicated. This is the way, and it's not overbearing. You hunger for that if you come from a place of chaos.
Yeah, because nobody told you which way to go. This was right, this was wrong. You had to figure it out on your own. So in boundaryless homes, we starve, we're hungry for structure. So we're drawn to church systems that start to tell us, here's what you think, here's what you do, here's what a woman looks like, here's what a man looks like, here's what a marriage looks like. So you can see the pendulum swing starting to build. And when you think about it in child development wise, spiritual formation, talk a little bit about, like, when you think about what kids need when they're little, they need more structure. But when we grow spiritually and mature, we have to kind of start letting them go.
Yeah.
How does that relate to needs? And
yeah, well, if you talk about actual human development and you put alongside that faith development and spiritual formation, they kind of go hand in hand, and that's what you're asking here. And so, yes, children, when they're young, both actually in physical bodies, but also spiritually young, no matter where you are. If you're a new believer, the Bible talks about milk. Paul, the person, the apostle who wrote most of the New Testament, talks about the significance of needing milk at that time, right? And then he talks about later about being more mature, learning to feed on solid foods, just like we do in human life. Yeah, and the idea is that we are growing, and we can't just be drinking milk, throughout our maturity space. Otherwise, we're not maturing. And it has milk, of course, mother's milk, and when we're babies, has incredible nutrients that God gave us that is so significant to that time. But you shouldn't be drinking that much past that time. There's some arguments about that. That's where things can get a little wonky too.
It can get wonky. And so I'm going to stretch that analogy out even further. So when you're taking care of a little one, we think as parents about their needs, when they're going to eat. I mean, they tell us they're crying and temper tantrums, and but we're looking at structure. We're looking at making sure there's nap times, and we're getting to bed, and we're eating on time, and there's a rhythm and going to the bathroom. But as parents, we are meeting those needs.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of a child saying, Mom, can you change my diaper right now? But as they mature, part of the growing, what we're trying to help our children do is similar in spiritual formation, is to start using their words. To say, Mom, I'm hungry right now. And now, okay, they're 11 years old. Well, let's talk about what would be a good option for you to grab and to make. Some of us mommies like to make our kids food all the way till they're 45, and we can't get them to move out.
Like I said, wonky.
Wonky. But that's what happens in spiritual communities, where we like to meet someone's need, and then they don't learn how to discern their own needs. They wait for someone else to tell them what they need.
Yeah, this is so important for any religious leaders that are leading, whether it's in a formal vocational church ministry or parachurch ministries, or if you're in the nonprofit world, or just if you are a believer that's leading in the corporate space. We're trying to train people up. We're called to say, "Come follow me as I follow Christ," and the purpose is to grow. The purpose is not that we become this person that everybody needs to follow and needs us. There's one God, and we're pointing people to Him. Jesus said, "If I be lifted up, I'll draw all men to myself, all people to myself." Our job is to point people to Him and show them how to grow and walk with people in discipleship type relationships, no matter where you are. We're all on mission in that way. Every man and woman, boy and girl is a minister in that way. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're in the family of God in that way. It's part of our who we are and what we're called to join in that. So we've got to be walking with people. We've got to be thinking intentionally. And this doesn't mean that everybody's going to be a pastor, everybody's going to have a huge flock or an influencer.
We're just talking about even parenting your kids.
Yeah, this is just one-to-one. This is no matter if you're parenting your kids or it's somebody that you're working with.
Happens all over.
Yeah, in the office, it's about growth, and it's about helping people to mature.
So being able to attune to someone's needs, giving them a chance to voice it, to practice meeting that need, you helping them, then them being able to meet that need themselves. So going back to that president of a company, loves Jesus, very mature spiritual leader. He's like, do my needs even matter? And I want to go back to Genesis. When I look at the way that God created us in his image, he's a triune relational God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's a whole other podcast. We can kind of go down that road another time. But the baseline is that our God's entire identity is based in being a relational God. We're made in his image, which means we are relational and we need relationship.
It's a need, not a want. It's a need.
Yeah. So when we oversimplify and we say your needs now, you need to go to God for everything, only that, it's dismissing the design that God made us with being relational. It's also dismissing just our humanity. So one of the things I hear in very toxic systems is when you need something. So let's say I come to you, Jeff.
Okay.
This is not a real scenario. I need to say this out loud because we get a lot of feedback of like, why didn't Jeff do this? Or why didn't Jeff do that?
This is a spontaneous moment here. This happens all the time, people.
Oh gosh, I do. Okay, I throw them under the bus.
I'm rolling with you here. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's say I come to you and I'm like, I really need a hug. Like, I just need a physical hug. Would you just hold me? And that is a real need for me. My top love language isn't touch, but there is a sense of sometimes just having a really bad day and I just need a friend to give me a hug. And you're my closest friend. So I'm going to ask you. It would really stink if you said, yeah, that's hard. Why don't you pray about that? I would first want to punch you, but second,
you don't really need me. You really need Jesus.
Yes, I mean it sounds like a silly example, but I hear that in all kinds of contexts
where
super
people subtle
and dismiss each other's human needs. Yeah. Especially when it comes to parenting and child development for children. So children start to learn in these systems not to feel. And then that turns into really funky maladaptive coping strategies when our feelings get stuffed down. We learn not to need things because if I ask for my needs, it's going to either be dismissed or over spiritualized. And I'm not learning how to identify my need and then get my need met in a healthy way. I'm just learning to dismiss it.
Let me just say that I think that most of our listeners probably are in a space where they don't want to be a person that dismisses people's needs.
Yeah, totally.
But they realize that they do it. And I do it. And every one of us does it. It's probably one of the biggest culprits in that for that kind of person is going to be is busyness. So busyness gets me. I'll just say this. It's one of the most challenging things for me. If I'm in the zone on something, whether it's personal or professional or whatever it might be, and I have that interruption by my daughters or you or someone else, another colleague, I'm more vulnerable to be to not see you and to minimize your voice in that moment and make my need and what I'm doing, superior, if you will. I don't want to do that. This is an area of growth for any one of us, but for myself included, just to shrink my own integrity gap. Of course, I want to give the best to those I say I love the most. Busyness is in the way a lot of times, and leaders have never been busier, it seems like. And the distractions with our digital devices foster that and make that a challenge, but also just, I think, in many ways, the tyranny of the urgent that has always been there for leaders. And I think maybe a mismanagement about personal and professional boundaries. All of these things play at that and make leaders more vulnerable to minimizing the needs of others. This in spiritual communities and secular communities, it can happen. So how we can address this and work and think through how do I be present more with people is one of the great challenges for any leader, emerging or seasoned, to get better and better at. I think it's just something that it's something that we want to grow in our abilities to do. And when we do that, we see people, we feel a sense of greater congruency and integrity in our own journeys.
Mm-hmm.
Our people that we're leading and linking arms with feel seen, known, and it changes the relationship. It helps us to feel more congruent in that
I will
way.
say, though, that you're not going to be able to do that unless you learn to do that with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is part of going back to your needs matter.
You cannot give what you do not have.
Yeah, but I can hear in a lot of people's stories, they're told that when you pay attention to your needs, you're actually being selfish.
Okay.
And so part of the practice is saying you don't notice somebody else's needs if you've never really figured out your own piece.
Our kids not only crave connection with us and with God, they need it. One of the strongest ways we can show love to our kids is through words of encouragement, not just thinking it, not just acts of service, but using our words to bless them and encourage them and tell them who they are and who God is and how He's showing up in their life. That's why Christian Parenting created Noteworthy Prayers. These 50 customizable notes were designed to help you remind your kids that you love them, you're thinking about them, and are always praying for them. And it makes it really easy for us busy parents. Each card has an uplifted message, a Bible verse, a prayer, and a space for you to write your own little note to your child. Simply tear off a page, place it in their backpack, their lunchbox, their bathroom mirror, or their car dashboard for those older kiddos, wherever they will find it. Get creative. And remember, your kids are never too old or never too young to hear how much you adore them. For more information and to get your cards, head over to cpgive.org. That's cpgive.org.
You've said this before too. It's about love. You can't really love, actually, if you don't know what it feels like to be loved.
Well, I didn't see that. That was God saying in 1 John 4. He says, you love because I first loved you.
Mm-hmm.
And He designed it so that babies would grow up, ideally, in a home where they meet their first disciplers, mom and dad, who show them what love is like. Now, we live in a broken, fallen world, and so very few of us have experienced healthy attachment. So let's go to baseline needs. Baseline needs of children.
Yeah.
Feel safe.
Secure.
To soothe, to learn how to find comfort, which that's what that means. Like the sucking of the thumb is a practice of soothing. And hopefully we learn how to self-soothe in
other
ways than sucking our thumb. But it can turn into alcoholism, workaholism, exercisism, all these things that we isms that we will lean into to keep sucking our thumbs rather than learning to find healthy comfort and care. But that's part of what every child needs.
To be seen and known, even underlying all of that.
Okay, so those are the others. To be seen, so seen for who they are individually. And so think about big families. And you have a lot of children or you come from a big family. Yeah. Know that this is not a shame statement. It's just an information statement.
Yeah.
But as parents caring for a larger flock or pastors who have a larger flock, it gets harder and harder.
It's a numbers thing.
To really be able to go in and know each person individually and to love them as much as they actually need. So people that grow up in larger systems learn to just be a part of the number and to learn what the group needs, or they learn to fight for their need. Like thinking about there's only so much food and I'm hungry. And so they might be the first one to go and grab the helpings, or they are the one who says, you know what, if there's only a little bit left, that's okay. I didn't need much anyways. So that's kind of this dynamic from family of origin. It teaches us about our needs, and we need to be thoughtful about how we're creating systems that identify each person's needs. And the more people in a system, the harder it is.
A couple great families that we know of that have a lot of kids, and these parents, they love God and they love their children. Man, they talk about how challenging it is. It's a spreadsheet to organize the family system. just from a practical standpoint. And it is trickier. It's just harder because there's more needs to attune to.
Yeah.
And that's nothing right or wrong about it. It just is.
Yeah. So part of the way that we do that practically. So let's start at home, working on needs, and then we'll work to the workplace.
Good.
Okay. Church or sacred, or secular or sacred, we can talk both. But at home, part of one-on-one time, individual time, is a really important time to do check-ins, to be able to pay attention to body language, to be able to say and ask the question, is there anything you need right now from me? And allow the different wirings to take the time to figure it out. A builder is going to be moving and not as in tune with their body. A banker needs some time to think about it and to assess. An innovator might be able to answer it, but they probably want to solve it themselves. So they're kind of like, I don't need your help. And a merchant's going to need to verbally process it out, and they'll land at their need after they tell you about all the other issues.
They're really happy you asked.
Yeah, they're really happy you asked. So just being able to take assessment and time and doing this for yourself pretty regularly. I will do this with the Lord and with my group, my small group. People who know me.
So you're using CVI language. That's the core values index when we talked about wiring there. For anyone that hasn't been familiar with other times that we've talked about it, that's where it is. And you can learn more about that if you want, about wiring, from other podcasts that we've done earlier.
Yeah. And that's not what this is about today, but it's just attuning to the fact that people have different wirings, and everybody knows that.
That's right.
And the way that, you might ask your wife, is there anything you need from me today? If she's never practiced this, she's going to say, nope, or looky like a deer in the headlights, based on her wiring and her story and her practice.
Sure.
And maybe all the history you have between each other, where maybe it's been easy for you to do what you need to do. And she's just been attuning to all the kids and the work that she has and the house demands. And she hasn't even thought about herself.
Yeah, she grew up in a home where mom or dad or both, and their needs were the ones that sort of ran the family, system, and the kids were kind of seen but not heard. That would predispose her to not feeling comfortable with inspecting her needs in a marriage, in a family system, at work, or where have you? Yeah, it feels selfish, or maybe that was even reinforced in unhealthy systems with messagings of that would be selfish. If she tried to raise her needs, I would like this, or I need this, and it was put down, which happens to all of us in so many different ways through our journey. So she is not a mystery person. She is all of us, right? In different times of our journeys, whether at home or sometimes this happens when you go to college, experience having your needs dismissed at work. So
practically, I would start with this question. What do I need physically today? What do I need emotionally today? What do I need spiritually? Do I have any need financially? And there's this breaking things out. You can also do it with my mind, my body, my heart, and my soul. What do they all need? And if you've never asked that question before, if it's more comfortable, start with God. Ask God. Psalm 139 says, search me, know me, see if there's any anxious way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Let the Lord show you what are the things that you're longing for. Needs are God-designed sirens and ways for us to be relational with Him and with others. And when we learn to meet our needs all by ourselves and be like, I don't need anybody else, that's a warning sign. And it's isolating, and the enemy loves to work there.
Yeah, because God actually designed us to have needs and to need each other. Like it's not an option to be a Christian, to be isolated. That's just not being a Christian, not following in that way. And so we do need each other, and we need to be attuned, and our bodies do communicate to us. My gosh, it tells us you can ignore it. If you got to go to the bathroom, it's going to be a problem if you keep ignoring it, so on and so forth. If you eat, same thing, you're hungry. It's funny how we have to talk to leaders who oversee large organizations and companies, sometimes not even at a global level. And we have to tell them, hey, how are you doing? Do you listen to your body to eat and to sleep and to go to the bathroom?
Well, and in Maslow's, it's a psychology kind of reference, but in Maslow's theory of needs, really when you're in survival mode, when you're in a traumatic place, so maybe some of you are listening, you're in a crisis place, you are literally thinking about baseline needs, showering, making sure I ate today, make sure I go to sleep, make sure, literally baseline needs. And the more in survival mode we are in life, the more that we need to focus there. But if you're still living in that and you're not moving beyond that, and you're in a healthier system or in a safer place, it's time to start practicing that next piece, especially for those that are in your wake behind you. Okay, we only have a little bit more time. Sorry, we hugged up all of it for the house, but let's talk about work real quick. How do we attune to people's needs at work? Maybe start first with the leader who is in charge of all these people. How do they attune to their needs before they start to practice tuning to others' needs?
Yeah, well, one of the things that comes to my mind is just that the leader needs to remember that they can't meet everybody's needs.
Amen.
they need just some team around them, if you will, depending on the size of the organization that has the bandwidth to be able to address needs coming in, and you got to adjust the size of the support, if you will, based on the size of organization and number of people that are going to have needs. So your HR. And different ways that your leadership team is organized, and how many people they oversee, and what kind of direct line of communication is given to people that are in leadership roles, and to how many people that communication is given to. All of those things come into factors trying to figure out, how do I live and lead sustainably? So those are things that come to my mind initially here.
That's really good. I think the reality that we can't meet everybody's needs is a really important truth that gets twisted sometimes, when on the flip side, where there's this lie. I've heard this lie in my own head of it's up to you. It's up to you. And it's subtle, but that's often comes from our families of origin and maybe the Christian systems we've grown up into. Like, if you don't share the gospel, then that person will never meet Jesus. And it's up to you to lead them to salvation. And I go, wow, that is very different from the gospel that I read, where it says God is the one who will do it in and through us. We're just vessels. We're just people. So that releasing the valve of it's not up to us. We don't have to meet everyone's needs. We just have to be better at listening. So let's end with this. Just because someone asks for something doesn't mean I have to meet that need.
Right.
So just because my daughter comes to me and says, Mom, I need a pair of shoes. And it's going to be $150 and I need these, right? Well, let's just talk about, is that a need or a want? We can go there. But at the end of the day, I don't have to meet that need. Or maybe it's simple. Mom, I need to stay home from school tomorrow. I really need a mental health day. We can talk about what she really needs and maybe try to meet that need in a different way than actually keeping her home from school. But there's this idea that not every need that's expressed has to be met, but it does need to be listened to. It needs to be maybe cared for, and maybe figure out what ways can you meet that need, even if I can't do it for you.
I think for my part, this in summary at work, when we're thinking about the leaders at work and meeting needs and how you can attune to, first of all, understanding that your needs are important, but other people around you have needs as well. You can't meet all of them, but I would just say also just cultures and organizations that are striving to put practical resources in front of their people are recognizing in this season, in this time, more than almost ever than I can remember, their number of mental health needs is on the rise. It's just huge. Everywhere. And your people at work have kids that are struggling in many cases with their own mental health and challenges. And we are getting these reports behind the closed doors of the clinical side of what we do, but also an executive coaching side. So learning to attune to their needs, hearing their needs, being present with them, using active listening to mirror, validate, and empathize with needs that are expressed, looking to actually provide practical resource to attune to those needs, like providing mental health days, or actually coming alongside a number of organizations that are organizational clients of ours, actually have helped cover some of costs for clinical work where that's needed. That shows and communicates real care to people that have actually changed real lives. They didn't have to do that. They're going and they're putting their money where their mouth is when they talk about taking care of their people and winning the talent battle, for example. It's because these organizations are actually, they're caring for their people. They're seeing them more, and we're helping them to try to do that in the workplace. But oftentimes it starts with them one-to-one and them thinking about the people that they love the most. Their marriage if they're married, their kids if they got kids as well. And then they're like, I need to take this to my people. I got other people who are in relationships and have kids and that I'm overseeing. And this is how organizational systems at home or at work, how they get transformed. We help you to try to learn the hows, and that's what you're seeking, is the how do we do these things. And so I hope that that's encouraging to many who happen to also be not only parents or married, but they also are organizational leaders.
Yeah, so let's just end with this thought. Needs are about both and. You got to go to the Lord. Ultimately, people disappoint. Our systems disappoint. And as human beings, we're flawed. We can't meet all our needs at this side of heaven. That's the hope of our faith and following of Jesus, that this isn't the end of the story. And yet, it's a noble pursuit. There's a wholehearted way of coming before God and saying, how's my mind? How's my heart? How's my body? How's my soul? And not compartmentalizing and saying one is more spiritually mature or more needs to be honored and the other one's dismissed. We want to model this in our homes, so when we're tired, are we actually taking a nap or sleeping more? And that would be a baseline need. If we're hungry, are we stopping, like you were saying earlier, and actually feeding ourselves good food? Or are we just flying by and trying to just fill ourselves with something so we can coast and cope? If we're longing for that intimacy with the Lord and we just haven't made the time, it's time. Start with small increments, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, move it to 30. We intentionally, I'll speak for myself, I intentionally take every morning to have some time with God to identify some of my needs. I have a lot of needs. I'm not needy. I know I'm not needy, but I'm an intense person. And so I've got a lot of things and I'm really in tune with my needs. So I'm asking the Lord, what are the things that only you can take care of, Lord, that I have to trust you with? And then what are the things that I can do something about? And it gives clarity for the day.
And is there somebody in my inner circle that can help meet that need that you want to use, God? Because again, coming back to the whole premise of this is that He designed us with needs. He made us need these things. And so it's not just me and Him vertically, but from Him in the relationship with Him. Is there others that you want to use to help meet that need that would be good for me and good for them, that He has orchestrated, He has designed, He has purposed? What are some things, the differences between needs and actual wants, and searching that comes from also aligning with Him as well. So this is a both, not just an either or, it's a both and, like you're describing.
It's a both and. So remembering that in healthy systems, we need God. And so if you're putting too much emphasis on the people around you, maybe start there. And if you are been all about God and that God's supposed to meet all your needs, then maybe it's time to risk with some people in your life, safe people who will say, yeah, I can give you that hug, versus go deal with that yourself. Okay. So empathy towards ourselves, empathy towards others, I hope is what you're hearing today. And as we live this in our culture with one another and model it, watch people pick it up. They'll start to experience going, oh, Jeff's taking a day off to go hang out with his family. That must mean I can do that. Or Tara is actually canceling her appointments this afternoon because she's not feeling well and actually needs to take the time off. Oh, that means I can when I'm sick. There's a lot of modeling that happens by just doing it ourselves. So we just leave you with one last word of encouragement. Jeff, I'm going to toss the ball to you. What's one last word of encouragement?
Well, we hope that you're committed from even hearing this podcast, it's encouraging you to stay committed to your own development as a leader. And one aspect of that is learn more to attune to real needs. Be in a space so that you can actually see the needs of others and where God might lead you to step in and be a part of meeting that need in certain situations, and being very open to the fact that He may direct you to have someone else do that, or and to follow His example. Jesus set the example in many cases. Needs were all around Him. Sometimes He just left to go and be with the Father. Other times He was right there and meeting every need that was around Him as they came. And so we got to stay connected to God, let Him guide and direct you. And I hope that encourages you today to continue to grow in your leadership.
This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.